Hi, everyone. Welcome to this super session. You are very welcome to join us for this evening. And it's a beautiful evening here in North London. I hope it is where you are too. I hope you've had a good day and you're enjoying life. More to the point, I hope you've had a great Easter holiday and a good relaxing time. But now, of course, we slip to the time when thoughts of work are back in our minds. And as for me, my work is that I'm chairman of two super groups of people in the BCS, the British Computer Society, the Chartered Institute for IT. And the two groups are the Central London and North London branches. And I'm indeed privileged to have some super companions, including David Grundy, who's here with me now. Now, this is part of our Recruit initiative, as you can see at the top of the page there. And this is led by David, but we have a number of different initiatives. And you'll see another one just now. Here we are. There's the one we have coming up in a week's time. This is part of our Secure IT initiative. And we'll be on penetration testing. Again, a very vital, a very important IT related skill, which you might well have. If so, do learn more about IT, do become better and better and improve your skills. Let's come back to today's one. And here we are, LinkedIn secrets. Well, we're focusing on jobs, your job, and how do you improve your ability to get a better job and better use of this superb platform called LinkedIn. We have a very exciting presenter today who is called Fay Wallis. Perhaps you can see her on your screens there. Well, you're going to be seeing a lot more of her in a few minutes because Faye is at Bright Sky Career Coaching. So guess what she does? Yes, she's a career coach and she has got lots of great tips for us in terms of LinkedIn and how to use it. So much more from me much later, but in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, David, who is acting as our technical coordinator for this session, and he will hand over in turn to Faye, who will take us through the next 1 hour to 1.5 hours, including your questions and so on, and teach us lots more about using LinkedIn to get your ideal job, an ideal session. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Over to you, Faye.
Okay, Faye, so do you want to share your screen now and just get up and running?
Yes, of course. Okay, wonderful. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And welcome everyone to this evening's webinar, LinkedIn Secrets, where I will be talking you through how to leverage LinkedIn to get your ideal job. And this will make me sound like a complete geek, but I absolutely love LinkedIn. I think it's just a fantastic platform that has completely transformed recruitment. And no matter how you feel about it, whether you're uncomfortable with the idea of social media, whether you love LinkedIn, whether you don't really have any strong feelings about it either way, I hope that you'll be able to take away lots of helpful pointers from today's session and that you'll leave feeling more excited about it than you did before you started. But before I dive straight into talking about LinkedIn in detail, I thought it would be useful just to introduce myself quickly. So my name is Fay Wallis. I'm a trained career and executive coach. My company is called Bright Sky Career Coaching, which I set up in April 2016. So we just had our 6-year anniversary last week, which I can't quite believe. It feels like the last 6 years have absolutely flown by. And before becoming a coach, my career was mainly spent in HR and recruitment, which means that I've sat on the other side of the fence. I've been the person who goes out and recruits people into the business. And it means that I've been able to take that knowledge with me into Bright Sky to help people get their new roles. And at Bright Sky Career Coaching, we work with individuals and with organisations. So that means that people either book our services to help themselves with their own careers, or organisations book us to help their staff in some way. And our 3 core services are outplacement support, career change coaching, and also coaching people who are in a role but who are experiencing a challenge at work and they'd like some help in overcoming that challenge. So it means that outplacement support is where we do most of our LinkedIn training and give most of our LinkedIn advice. And if you haven't come across the term outplacement before, because I know most people haven't, this is when an organisation is making redundancies, but it wants to support their employees with moving into new jobs. So the support is often very practical, with advice on really helpful things like LinkedIn, CV writing, and interview coaching. And so through my work, I found that many people either weren't using LinkedIn at all, or they'd set up a LinkedIn profile page ages ago and they hadn't really done anything with it for a long time. And LinkedIn is actually pretty good at making improvements and little tweaks here and there. So it means that if you've not been actively using it for a while, or in fact, if you even have been using it a lot recently, it can be really easy to miss out on some of the great features and the great resources that they have available, just where things change all the time. And whenever I was booked to give one-to-one support to help someone with LinkedIn, I realized that I just kept giving the same advice about their profile again and again and again. So I thought about it and I decided to create an online course, which is called Power Up Your LinkedIn Profile. And it's a series of short tutorial videos that takes you through your LinkedIn profile, right from the top of it all the way down to the bottom, and shows you how to complete it as effectively as possible, step by step. And it was a way really of being able to support as many people as possible at a much lower price point to if they were to book me or one of the other coaches I work with on a one-to-one basis. And I'll just give you a very quick glimpse of that course at the very end of our time together today. So although there is that course, and I will spend a little bit of time talking about it, mainly what I'm going to share with you today, everything isn't included in the course. It's a whole range of extra tips that I would love to have added in, but I worried I'd completely overwhelm people with all of that information. So one day I may end up turning what I teach you today into an advanced LinkedIn course, but for the moment, you are the lucky few. You're the first people who are going to be hearing all of this advice. So enough about me. Let's have a think about and let's learn about what we'll be covering today. So in case you aren't already convinced about how great LinkedIn is, especially when you're looking for a new role, I'll spend a tiny bit of time just sharing some statistics with you in the hope of changing your mind. I'll then talk you through how and why recruiters use LinkedIn, because I think that's so helpful to know, because then it really helps you to understand exactly how you can increase your chances of being approached by recruiters for a role that is perfect for you, that's your ideal role. And we'll then work our way through a quick checklist of things to make sure you've done to get your profile to a point where it's looking polished and professional. Then next, not only will we make sure that you have a profile you can be proud of, but that it also properly increases your chances of landing your next role, and it helps you to help recruiters find you on LinkedIn. So I know there can be some nervousness and uncertainty about who you should connect with on LinkedIn, and I can talk to you about that as well if you'd like me to. I'm going to leave time for questions at the end, so if you have got any questions, please do store them up and ask them to me. I would love to help as much as I can. So I'll cover as much as I can, but I'm sure there will be stuff I don't touch on. Please do feel free to ask me at the end. And the part that I'm probably most excited about sharing with you today is some of LinkedIn's best resources and features that most people just don't know about. And in fact, one of them just came out very, very recently. It was launched at the end of last year, but it's only rolled out fully within the last few weeks, really. So lots of these features are often just tucked away or released without any major announcements. So they end up being really underused underutilized. So this is a great opportunity for you to learn about them. And then I'll just very quickly show you the Power Up Your LinkedIn Profile course. We'll take a super quick look at it. And finally, as I mentioned before, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So moving on to my first point that I promised to cover, why bother with LinkedIn? I would love to explain why I think this is a good idea. And there are some quite mind-blowing statistics about the platform. They're updated regularly on the LinkedIn news website, and I can share a link for this with you if you'd like me to. So you can see those statistics for yourself. You'll know I'm not making them up. And when I checked the website 2 days ago while I was getting ready for today's session, I found out that there are actually 810 million members in 200 countries and regions worldwide, with more than 32 million people in the UK on the platform. So that's nearly half of the entire UK population, which I was genuinely stunned. I actually hadn't realised there are that many people signed up to LinkedIn now. And not only that, but I found out that 77 job applications are submitted through LinkedIn every second. 49 million people use LinkedIn to search for jobs each week, and 6 people are hired every minute on LinkedIn. So hopefully that's going to convince you that it's really worthwhile putting some of the tips and features I show you today into action. And I know from the work that I do, just from talking to the people that I help, how helpful LinkedIn has been for them with getting their next roles. So let's take a look at how and why recruiters use LinkedIn. Now, it could be easy to think that recruiters are using LinkedIn just because the platform's so popular after I just showed you all those statistics, but I actually think it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So if I cast my mind back many years ago, I was working for an executive search firm when LinkedIn first came out. And in case you haven't come across an executive search firm before, this is a certain kind of recruitment company that specializes in placing people in senior or highly specialist roles. And unlike other recruitment companies that we're all probably more familiar with, they won't usually just rely on advertising jobs. So they're not putting jobs, well, in the old days, when I first started working, it would have been jobs in the paper. And nowadays, of course, it's much more likely to be posting job adverts on LinkedIn or on other websites and job boards. Instead, in an executive search firm, they'll try and track down the right person for their vacancy, and then they'll approach that person directly because they're hoping to entice them away from their current job. And I really vividly can remember the first time I heard about LinkedIn because there was a disagreement happening between 2 of the headhunters that I worked with. Because before LinkedIn was created, it could be a real challenge to track down the right people for vacancies. It would take headhunters years to create networks of really trusted contacts who they could turn to, who would recommend people to them to help them fill their roles. It really was a case of sort of bashing the phones, taking people out for coffees, asking them who they knew, asking them for recommendations. They totally relied on word of mouth recommendations. So some of them, and I remember this one person in particular, just couldn't believe that LinkedIn was ever going to work. They were saying, why on earth are people going to put their details online on LinkedIn? They just saw it as being like an online directory. And of course, social media hadn't become anywhere near as huge as it is now. So it felt like a strange idea to some people. Whereas other people thought, other headhunters who I worked with thought it was absolutely brilliant because it was making their lives so much easier. They could just search through LinkedIn to find the people they were looking for instead of endlessly phoning around their contacts and trying to get names. And of course, what this has actually meant all these years later, where LinkedIn has been this huge success, is that many more traditional recruitment companies that never used to try to track down people directly, they started changing their approach and are acting more like the headhunters who I used to work with. And I know it's actually not even just recruitment companies. If an organization has got an internal recruiter or someone in HR who's responsible for their recruitment, that person will often be tasked with trying to fill some quite tricky vacancies, and they may very well turn to LinkedIn to do that. And I know that because I used to be that person. So I've used LinkedIn myself to try and fill roles for the last company that I worked for when I was responsible for internal recruitment. And not only is it great because you can find the exact person you need for the role that you're trying to fill, it actually saves companies a fortune if they're not having to use recruiters themselves. And it saves recruiters a fortune because where they used to have to pay for advertising all the time to try and draw people towards them, they haven't got those fees anymore. They do have to pay a fee to LinkedIn, but it all sort of balances itself out. And it also can be a huge time saver for them, which might sound weird because it does take quite a long time as a recruiter to track down the right people who you then reach out to try and fill a role. But what can happen, and what I've definitely had personal experience of, is you pay to advertise a role, you put it on a website or a job board, and you are inundated. Because it is so easy to apply for roles now, it's too tempting for people to sit online and go, click apply, click submit my CV. And it means at the other end, the recruiter's going, oh my gosh, I've had 250 applications. How am I going to review all of these CVs? How am I going to make sure I'm finding the right person? So it takes some of that stress and that time burden away by actually going into LinkedIn and trying to find people yourself. So LinkedIn is used by recruiters in different ways. Advertising does still happen. There's a jobs section, which you've probably already seen on LinkedIn if you're using it. It's in this section that recruiters and companies can advertise jobs and you can find jobs. So that's one way that they use LinkedIn. And if you're thinking, what are you talking about, Faye? Where is this job section? Well, you'll be taken straight to it if you click on the briefcase icon along the top bar of the page once you're logged into LinkedIn. And I think I have a slide that will show you that. Yes, here we go. So this is a screenshot I took from my LinkedIn profile today. If you look at it, you'll see I've put a yellow circle around that briefcase. That shows that I clicked on there to get to the jobs section. And straight away, what comes up for me are recommended roles for me. So if you were to log in, you would be shown very different recommended roles because, of course, you're not a career coach, you do something different. And you'll see down the left-hand side, you can sign up for things like job alerts, which is when you're emailed if any more relevant jobs come in. And you can also save some of the jobs if you would like to. But other ways that recruiters use LinkedIn are similar to why you might be using it. So LinkedIn has evolved a lot since I worked at that executive search firm. It's definitely not just an online directory anymore. People and companies share useful content and events every single day. So it's a great place to go to keep up with industry trends, to find out about events to go to. And this slide here, I created this today. So I thought about the fact that most of you will be working in IT. And I just went onto LinkedIn and I put in the search bar, IT recruiter. I then selected posts, so I could see some posts that had been put up on LinkedIn by IT recruiters. And you can see straight away on the left-hand side, this is a senior recruiter in IT. He posted this a little while ago. You can still see people's posts from ages ago if you would like to. And he says here a whole list of roles within IT that he is hiring for at the moment. Now, he may have those advertised on the jobs pages as well, but he may not. Again, recruitment can be, as with any job, incredibly busy. And it may be that he's just thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even have time to A, advertise these roles, or B, sift through all the applicants. So I'm just going to tell my network what roles there are, and hopefully the right people are going to see it and get in touch with me. Because it can be tempting to think, oh, as long as I'm in the jobs section and I've signed up for job alerts, I will see all of the relevant jobs. And that's not necessarily the case. So I always recommend, always, that you connect with recruiters that specialize in the roles you're interested in applying for. And then look on LinkedIn so that you'll see when they are posting about those roles. Then on the right-hand side, here is an example of a different IT recruiter, and he shares an event, a workshop that they've put on especially for people who are looking for roles within the IT sector. So I thought, this looks like it could be pretty relevant and useful. And so you can see again why it's a good idea to be on the platform, not just to have a great profile that's going to draw recruiters to you, but also so that you can see roles that are coming up, you can find out about helpful events, and you can just learn other things that are really relevant for you and help keep you up to date with your skills. So moving on to the next slide. So the next thing I'd like to talk to you about, this is what I cover in huge depth in the online course, but we're just going to very quickly whiz through today, because if I went through it in depth, I would take up all of our time, and there are all the other things that I would like to share with you. And I've actually created a checklist for you that you can have. I'll just open up the chat and I will pop, oh, hang on, let me see if it will let me do it. And I'll pop the checklist in there. Right, it's just uploading now. Oh gosh, and I can see that there are loads of questions that you've put in there. I'm not going to look at them right now, but that's wonderful you're asking questions. I promise I'll check back at the end and answer as many as I possibly can. So hopefully you've all got your copy of your LinkedIn profile checklist. That's for you to take away and keep. You can print it off or just keep it on your computer. It's just there really as a prompt to help you remember what we're going to talk about next. Because hopefully after today, you're going to have really increased your chances of recruiters discovering you. And if they do find you on LinkedIn and are thinking of approaching you about a role, you want to make sure that you've got a polished and professional LinkedIn profile. It would be such a shame if they just click away from your profile because you haven't updated it in ages or you've never got around to finishing it off. And I promise that it isn't hard to have a good profile on LinkedIn. The main thing you need to make sure you've done is fill in as many of your profile sections as possible. So this checklist that you can see here, this is what I would consider the essential parts of your profile to complete. And if you're looking at that checklist and thinking, oh my gosh, what on earth is Faye talking about? I don't know what any of these things are, then please don't worry. I'm going to just very quickly talk you through them now. So again, this is a screenshot of my profile, and I will show you what everything is. So on your checklist, it says tick profile picture. Now, for some weird reason, well, actually, it's not a weird reason. So we have unspoken rules in the UK that on your CV, you should never have a photo of yourself on there. That is because of unconscious bias. All of these studies have shown that if you submit a CV and it has a photo of you, people will make a judgment based on your photo instead of the content of your CV. However, things are completely different on LinkedIn. I don't know if studies have been done into bias around profile photos, but what happens on LinkedIn is if you don't have a profile picture on there, it looks as if you haven't got a complete profile. It's completely expected that you will have a photo on there. You want to make sure it's a professional one. Ideally, it's just going to be a head and shoulders shot. So it's just going to be your head and shoulders rather than a whole body photo, because if you have a photo of your whole body and people are scrolling through LinkedIn, the photo of you is tiny and it will be really hard to make you out. Because what you'll find if you start to use LinkedIn a lot is that you may start commenting on other people's posts, liking other people's posts, and they'll start to notice and recognize you because of your profile photo as well as your name. Next is your headline. So you can see that underneath my name, there are all these different words. So I've got career coach, executive coach, outplacement specialist. I've written all of these things in here. And there's a good reason I have so many words in there. That is because when recruiters are doing searches on LinkedIn and they're trying to find someone to fill a vacancy, they will put keywords into the search bar. And one of the main keywords that they'll be looking for is the job title of the role that they want to fill. So for me, I'm not looking for a new job, but I have got these keywords in for the same reason. So it's not recruiters that I'm hoping are finding me, it's potential clients, it's individuals or organizations who are looking for a career coach. So I've put in all of the different words that I think someone may be looking for if they're in need of someone who offers the same services as I do. So LinkedIn will automatically populate this for you. You will never see a blank headline. If there is a blank headline, that would be very strange. That I would guess that means someone has made it blank by accident. What they will normally do is just put in the job title of the current place you're working, and then they'll put the name of the company you work for. So that's fine. You can leave that as your headline, but I think it's a real missed opportunity. I would really encourage you to go in and edit your headline and change it. So if you're aiming for a more senior role, you can put in there looking for a, and then put the name of the role that you're looking for. If you're looking for if you're open to opportunities, you can write that in there and put open to opportunities again, so that not only may the recruiter find you because of the job title, but they'll see straight away, oh, fantastic, they're open to opportunities. Because what is quite frustrating as a recruiter is if you find the perfect person, but they're just not interested. They're really happy in their current role and nothing you say to them is going to change their mind. So as a recruiter, when you are searching for people, one of the first things you'll be looking for is whether they are showing you that they're actually actively looking for a new role. And that brings me on to the next thing, which is the open to work settings. So if you click on that open to button that the arrow is pointing on, that will open up some options where you can say whether you're looking for a new role or not. And you've got the option of turning on a green semicircle that covers part of your profile photo. Now, that was brought out, I think, about a year and a half ago now, and LinkedIn did some research and they found out that if you have the green semicircle on your profile photo, you are 40% more likely to be contacted about a role on LinkedIn. So I often have people say to me, oh, I'm not sure about these open to work settings. I don't know if I want to have the green semicircle on. I don't know if I want everyone to know I'm looking for a role. And if that's how you're feeling, then I would just say be sensible about it. If you don't want your current employer to know you're looking for a new role, then it's probably not a good idea to turn that on. But actually, if you're in between roles or your employer knows you're moving on, then there is a lot of benefit in switching on your open to work settings and putting that green semicircle on your profile. The next thing that you'll see on your checklist to tick off is your about section. So I've shared my about section, but yours will look very, very different to mine. This is the one thing that I think people probably struggle with the most. It's like on a CV when you have a personal profile section or an executive summary section at the top of your CV. People find that really hard to write as well. I think we just find it difficult to talk about ourselves. We're not used to doing that. We're used to just getting our head down and cracking on with our jobs and not really having to sell ourselves. But it's so important that you make use of this. It's your opportunity to show a recruiter or a future employer that you are perfect for the role they're trying to fill, that you've got a wealth of skills and experience that you bring with you. So please, please, please don't leave this blank. Make sure that you put something in there. If you have already written your CV, then that's fantastic. Just copy and paste what you have put in the top part of your CV, so your personal profile. Hopefully, if you've all got CVs, you've done a personal profile. That if I was doing a CV workshop for you all, a CV webinar, that would be my first piece of advice. And if you're thinking, what are you talking about, Faye? I don't know what this personal profile section is. I don't know what to put in the about section. Then I know that you will know what a covering letter is. So in a covering letter, you write down all of the reasons that a company should consider hiring you, really. You're convincing them that you're the perfect person for the role. So you can treat your about section like it's a mini condensed covering letter and just put that down, just write something. It doesn't have to be as long as mine. Mine's really long because, again, I'm not looking for a role, you know, I'm promoting my services. For you, it doesn't have to be this long, but please do put something on there so you can tick off that point on your checklist. The next part on your checklist is the experience section. So this is where you just list out all of the roles that you've held. People will sometimes ask me, gosh, how far back should I go with this? What about when I had a Saturday job 25 years ago? Or what about a job I did a really long time ago? And again, I would just say, be sensible with this. You don't need to have every single role you've ever had, but I would normally say when your professional career started, then definitely have all of your roles on since then. You don't need to go into extreme detail or extreme length about every role that you've done. Just a few sentences is absolutely fine, but you can put in more detail if you want to, because as you'll see on the screen here, there are sections that say see more. So if you do want to write a lot, don't worry. If someone's interested, they can click on see more and read the rest. But when it's actually displayed initially to people, that experience section will look lovely and neat. It won't look really, really, really long and lengthy because LinkedIn just automatically formats it so that it looks lovely and really professional. The next essential section that I wanted to talk to you about is two sections actually, which is your education section and your licenses and certification section. I wanted to touch on this because I know there can be a lot of confusion around this when people will say, well, what's the difference? What should I be putting in education? What should I be putting in licenses and certifications? I'm not really sure. So my advice would be for the education section, you don't have to put your school on there, but if you want to put your school on there, you can. And then any formal education that you've had really in the school, college or university system, you would normally put there. So A levels, if you want to. I've got terrible A levels, so I haven't put them on. Degree, you can put on there. If you've studied beyond a degree, you can put that on there as well. But what's very likely is that you will have done other courses that aren't part of a university course or aren't part of school. And it's a great idea to shine a light on those, but they don't go in the education section. Instead, they go in this licenses and certification section. And more and more providers are allowing you to automatically show up the course you've completed in this licenses and certification section. It's really clever. So what you may find if you complete an online course now, when you get to the end of it, it may say to you, would you like to add this to your licenses and certification section of your LinkedIn profile? And you just click yes, and it adds it automatically like magic. But don't worry if you've done a course and it doesn't show you that option, you can still go in and add it into your profile yourself manually. And I'm just going to take a sip of water. I don't know if you can see me or if you're just seeing my slides now, but I've got my 2 glasses ready because I always get so thirsty when I'm talking for ages. Plus, I got my 2 boys a takeaway pizza because I knew I couldn't cook dinner for them where I was doing this webinar, and I just wolfed down 2 pieces of their Domino's pizza, which is so salty. So that's made me even thirstier. That probably wasn't a great move. But anyway, back to LinkedIn. So another section that people neglect is the skills section. So again, this is a screenshot from my profile showing you my skills section. And it looks as if I've only got 3 skills. So it has coaching, career development, and outplacement on there. Now, what that actually is that's the 3 skills I think are probably the most sensible to have displaying to people when they first look at my profile. So you can choose the top 3 skills that are shown. And then underneath that part, you may be able to see that in grey writing, it says show all 50 skills. So if someone was really interested in my profile, they'll see those top 3 skills. And then if they click on the show all 50 skills, it will bring up another 47. So you may think, whoa, Faye, this feels massively overboard, putting in 50 skills. What are you thinking? Well, 50 skills is the maximum that you're allowed to put in. And those 50 skills, really, I see them as being keywords. So for you, if you've got all your 50 skills filled in, they're very targeted at roles that you're interested in, then it means that when recruiters are searching, trying to find that perfect person to fill the role, they are going to search by job title, which we've already talked about. So you're going to have that job title in your headline. They are also going to search by some of the key skills that they need you to have. So if you've got those key skills in your skills section, you are much more likely to turn up at the top of their search than if you haven't. Other places you can put your key skills include your about section. So where I was just talking about that and saying, write your about section as if it's a condensed covering letter, you can also add in at the bottom, some of my key skills include, and just put some more in. It's fine to duplicate them by having them in the skills section and in your about section. In fact, it's probably a good thing because it's going to boost your chances of showing up in the right search results. And then finally, on your checklist, you'll see that I have said, please make use of the recommendation section. Now, the recommendation section is fantastic. Again, back when I was a recruiter, an internal recruiter, I remember receiving someone's CV and it had a link to their LinkedIn profile on it. So I clicked on the link and I saw straight away she had a really professional profile. And the first thing that I used to do when I could see that someone had a professional profile, which basically just meant they'd filled in most of the sections on LinkedIn, I'd scroll down and see if they had any recommendations. And she had glowing recommendations. They're a bit like unofficial references. Obviously, an employer is never going to hire you based solely on recommendations that you've received on LinkedIn, but if you're trying to make a good impression, this can definitely help. And you can ask people to write you a recommendation. There is a button on their profile that you can click on that says, request a recommendation, or you can also invite them to write you a recommendation through your profile by just clicking in the recommendations section. It will automatically come up and it will say, who would you like to write a recommendation for you? The one thing to know is you do have to be connected to that person on LinkedIn. So if you want to ask someone for a recommendation, make sure that you've connected with them first. As a rule of thumb, I would say always ask your boss if you've left your company or they know that you're leaving your company to write you a recommendation, and ask the most senior person who you interact with and who has a really good impression of you if they'd be happy to write one for you. Ideally, you want to be slowly building up these recommendations over time, but it's not the end of the world if you can't. I know it can be particularly difficult if you've been in one job for a really, really, really long time. But if you find that you are moving on every, 2 to 3 to 5 years, just each time you're getting ready to move, make sure you're asking for those recommendations because it looks fantastic. And another thing to think about is actually giving recommendations. So you can see here on my screen, in green, it says received. So that's showing you people who have written me recommendations. And next to it in grey is written given. Now, if I clicked on there, you would see that I have written, I don't know how many, but quite a lot of recommendations for other people. And hopefully that shows as being a nice thing. So if you are in a leadership role or a managerial role, or do you know what, even if you aren't in a leadership or managerial role and you just want to be nice, it can be a wonderful thing to write a recommendation for someone. As someone who's received some, it's such a lovely feeling, especially when you're not expecting to get them. And so I just think, give back some of that good career karma. Do try and encourage and boost other people as well. But the most important thing for you for now, for the advice I should give you, is to make sure you have received some recommendations. So now that we've whizzed through the most important aspects of your profile you need to have completed, we're going to move on to looking at how you can help recruiters find your profile on LinkedIn, because you've spent all this time creating this fabulous professional profile. You want to make sure they can find you. Now, I've already given you some tips, So I've said about keywords. That's one of the most important tips I can give you. But also, in that example I just shared with you from when I was a recruiter and I received a CV from someone and they had their LinkedIn link in their CV so I could click on it, please do that. So it would be great if you could add your LinkedIn URL to your CV. LinkedIn gives all of us our own URL. You can actually go one step further than this and you can edit your URL. So David has very kindly said that he would share some links for me in the chat. David, if you're able to share the link that I've given you, which shows people how to add their LinkedIn URL to their CV, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, it's there now.
Oh, thanks so much. That's great, David. So the link that I've shared shows an article and a video that I've created. So don't start reading it and watching it now. You can save it for later, but it will show you how to edit your LinkedIn URL, because at the moment, mine is something like linkedin.com/Fay Wallis. What it would have been originally would be linkedin.com/Fay Wallis, XYZ 123, but all these random digits at the end. You can actually just edit all of those digits out so that you have a really nice, neat and clean URL. So if you are applying for a role and you've got your LinkedIn URL on your CV, it's so much more likely that the person reviewing your CV is going to look at your profile and then be dazzled by how good it is. The second tip is something I have already mentioned, but I will say again, which is about connecting with recruiters. So the way LinkedIn works for recruiters is that they offer different packages. As you probably know, anyone can have a free LinkedIn profile, but there are also profiles called premium profiles. And the most expensive premium profiles are recruiter ones. So they offer different packages, different price points. So what happens is lots of recruiters actually won't be paying to access the full range of features that they can do. They will be operating just using a free profile because they'll think they have enough connections that they don't need to worry about spending the money on upgrading. Now, if that's the case, the only way they can find you is if you're in their network, which means you need to be connected to them some way on LinkedIn. Now, with LinkedIn, I'll use David as an example, who we just heard from. So David and I are connected on LinkedIn. That means that we're first degree connections. But if I went back to recruitment and I was searching for someone to fill an IT role and I put in a particular job title, let's say I put in IT manager, when the results that will come up that LinkedIn will show me, it won't just show me people who are my first degree connections, it will show me second degree connections as well. So a second degree connection is someone who is connected to a first degree connection. So because David does all this wonderful work for the BCS, I'm guessing that many of you are connected with him. And it's very likely that if I put in IT manager, a result would come up that would show me a second degree connection for me. So it would be one of you guys. So as a recruiter, I would then be able to say, oh, fantastic, I'm going to get in touch with them. I'll send them a connection request. So ideally, you will be connected to as many recruiters as possible, but also actually, I would encourage you to make sure you're connecting with everyone you meet. So all of your former colleagues, your current colleagues, your friends, your family, parents who you know from your children's school. It's really worthwhile connecting with them because you just don't know which recruiters they're connected to, which companies they're connected to, which is going to again increase your chances of turning up in searches. And then a final tip is about raising your visibility. So the safest way, the least scary way of being on LinkedIn is to never post anything and never comment on anything, never like on anything, just go on there and look at people's posts. But if you want to start building a profile for yourself and raising your visibility and supporting other people, then it's a good idea to start liking and commenting and engaging with other posts. If you start engaging with recruiters' posts, then you're much more likely to stick in their mind. They're going to remember you when they're looking to fill a role. we've got on to the bit I've been most excited about sharing with you. So we're now going to take a look at some of LinkedIn's best resources and features, but that so many people don't know about. So this really is the LinkedIn secrets part. And I really hope that this is going to excite you and you're going to be able to get a lot of value from learning these things now. So we're going to look at some different features, which are interview prep, search customization. This is a brand new one, the bell, activity, and also LinkedIn learning. And I'm just checking the time. Oh gosh, I will just fit this all in. So let's start with interview prep. Now, I showed you where the job section was a little bit earlier. If you remember, across the top bar of LinkedIn, you've got these different icons you can click on. If you click on the job section, that's where you can search for jobs, save jobs, set up job alerts. But also, if you look at my screen on the left-hand side, you'll see that I've put a box around something called interview prep. Now, this is something that no one else seems to know about, but I think is absolutely fantastic. I don't know how LinkedIn have kept this a secret for so long. They should be shouting from the rooftops about it. So what interview prep is an opportunity to learn how to answer the most common interview questions. So they have a list on the left-hand side of common interview questions, and the top one that's highlighted there is tell me about yourself. So if you click on that tell me about yourself question, what will happen is I'll just show you the next slide actually. If you scroll down on the page at the bottom, they have got a video guide for you telling you how to approach answering the question, and then a summary of what that guide covers. And I have to say, these video guides are really good. I completely agree with all of the advice that I've seen in them. I haven't watched all 30, I think there were 36. I haven't watched all 36 of them, but the ones I have watched have been excellent. So first of all, the first thing you would do is choose the question you want to practice, scroll down, look at some tips as to how to answer it. Then you scroll back up again, and can you see there's this little blue button that says practice and get feedback? So this is this new piece of artificial intelligence that LinkedIn has now. And I've told lots of people about it before, but I've never actually had a go with it myself. So today, a couple of hours ago, I thought, right, I better try this out. If I keep telling everyone this functionality is there, let me give it a go. So what happens when you click on there is this little screen pops up, and it says you can either record yourself giving a video answer to that question, or you can type out an answer. So I was brave and I did a video instead of typing it all out. And then at the end, when you finish the video, the artificial intelligence analyzes your answer and it gives you some feedback. So on this screen, you can see the feedback that I got. So it told me my pace was just right, which was encouraging to know, and I had good pitch variation. So it seems as if the feedback they give you is really around how fast you're talking and whether you sound incredibly nervous because your voice is going too high, or whether you're being too quiet or speaking too low. But what you can do as well is request further feedback. So where it says request feedback, that blue button, I did try that as well. And if you click on that, it then attaches your video and you can send it to one of your LinkedIn contacts to ask them for some feedback. So I know that's an even braver step, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning. And you may be wondering from seeing the screen what this whole premium sample answers thing is. So at the bottom of this screen here, it says sample answer 1. Now with LinkedIn, as I mentioned, there are premium versions of LinkedIn that you can sign up to. The cheapest premium version is for job seekers. They keep changing the name of it. I've actually forgotten what it's called at this split second. They changed it quite recently, but you would know straight away when you have a look at it. It's very, very clear when you click into premium and it shows you all of the different options. Now, I'm often asked, is it worth paying to upgrade to a premium account? what I normally suggest is that LinkedIn will normally offer you a free trial for a premium account. And I definitely think if you're looking for a new job, it's worth taking out that free trial and then just absolutely making the most of it. Because what you'll be able to do is get even more sample answers and more advice when it comes to this interview prep section. But you also get access to LinkedIn Learning, which is their online course platform that is brilliant. And you also get access to other insights. So in the job section, if you're looking at roles, it will show you how much of a match you are to that role according to the skills in your skill profile. So that's very helpful to show you what skills you should have in your skills section. So there are all these little reasons I do think premium is really good, but it's then up to you if you want to continue using it or and paying for it, or if actually you're able to get enough out of the free trial. But coming back to some of the other really good features, so search customization I've sort of touched on a little bit. Essentially, what it means is, although recruiters can use LinkedIn to find you by using the search bar, and if they're paying for a more expensive premium recruiter version, they'll have a whole load of other filters they can use. You can actually use the search bar too. So let's say you're thinking, but Faye, I don't know any recruiters within my space. How on earth am I going to connect with them? All you have to do is put in IT recruiter to the search bar and then hit return. If you're thinking, oh, well, it's shown me all these results and they aren't relevant, I only want to work in finance, that's fine. Put in IT recruiter, finance, and it's going to show you more relevant results. Now, underneath, you'll see after you hit return to do your search, it lets you filter your search down further. So you can click on people. That will show you first, second, and third degree connections who fit that criteria of IT recruiter and finance. But you can also search for jobs, posts. That can be a really handy one to search through to see if there is anything relevant coming up there, and all of these other things as well. So events, courses. The filter I tend to use the most is the people one for trying to find relevant people, but often people don't realize that this filtering is available. So I just wanted to make you aware of it, because not only can you use it to find recruiters, let's say you're thinking of having a career change and you want to work something completely different. You want to work in marketing, but you think you don't know anyone in marketing. Well, you would just put in marketing in there, hit return, hit people, and it will show you your first and second degree connections who work in marketing. So you can then reach out to them and say, I'm thinking of changing career. I'm not really sure. I don't know a huge amount about it. Could I have a chat with you about it, please? Or let's say you're staying in your IT career and you've applied for a role within an organization and you really, really want the job. Let's say, I'll just make up a company. Let's say it's called Bubbles Incorporated. You would just go into here and type in Bubbles Incorporated people, and it will show you if you're connected to anyone who works there. And people are regularly stunned to see how many connections they actually have. It's that whole funny, I don't know if you'll have heard of this whole 6 degrees of, is it 6 degrees or 7 degrees of separation game? There used to be about the actor Kevin Bacon. There was this thing that you could actually connect him to anyone in Hollywood through 6 or 7 degrees. Well, I think the same thing applies for jobs and careers on LinkedIn. You will be shocked at how many people you can actually get in touch with who can help you with getting your ideal job just by making the most of this search functionality. So the next thing, the newest thing, is the bell, and I'll explain this. So my husband has very kindly let me use his profile as an example. Now, one of the wonderful things about LinkedIn is you can send a connection request to anyone. You could send a connection request to Richard Branson or the Prime Minister or anyone you like, and they can decide whether or not they want to accept your connection request. If they decide they don't want to accept your connection request, it doesn't matter. it doesn't mean you can't still see their content. So let's say there's a recruiter, you really want to connect with them, but for some weird reason, they don't accept your connection request. Well, when you go to connect with them, there's actually the option to follow instead of connect. So I would always suggest you click follow. I don't think it's possible for LinkedIn to stop you from following someone unless they were to actively block you. And that's very rare. You would have had to have done something really horrible and inappropriate to get blocked on LinkedIn. So I'm sure that's not going to happen. The minute that someone accepts your connection request or you follow them, this little bell now appears in their profile. So if you click on that bell, you will then be notified about all of their posts. Because what you'll find happens is the more you start using LinkedIn, the more you get into it, the more connections you make, you don't necessarily see everybody's posts because you don't have enough time. Unless you were sitting on LinkedIn looking at it all of the time, you couldn't possibly see every single post that is being posted. So what LinkedIn does is it thinks, oh, right, we want to keep them on the platform, so we'll just show them the posts we really think they want to see and that they're more likely to engage with and that they're more likely to find relevant. So what that means is that you won't see everybody. So I'll have people say to me, oh, Faye, didn't you see my post? You didn't like it or you didn't comment on it. And I'll have to say, I just didn't see it. I've got so many connections now. I'm really sorry. So if there's someone and you really want to see everything they post, maybe it's someone you're going to be interviewed by, maybe it's a recruiter, maybe it's someone you're just interested in events they're running, click on that bell and LinkedIn will now let you know whenever they post something. So I feel like I've got a bit overexcited about this, but hopefully you're going to find that useful as well. So the next thing is to tell you about activity. So as you know, we're all leaving this digital footprint all of the time. This is a screenshot from my profile again. If you say have an interview coming up or you want to learn more about a particular recruiter, you would just go onto their profile and scroll down and you'll see an activity section. Now, what this activity section does is show you all of the activity they've had on LinkedIn. So if they've posted anything themselves, if they've liked any posts, if they've been engaging with any posts, it will show you that. But at the moment, you can only see the last 3 things that I've commented on or engaged with. If you were to click on the show all activity button, it will show you everything. So you'll be able to see every post I've ever written. You'll see all of the things I've engaged with. So again, this is where it can be very handy if you have an interview coming up and you want to get a sense of the person who's interviewing you. You don't want to completely creep them out by knowing everything, but it can be useful just to get a feel for the kind of stuff they're interested in. Perhaps there are some companies they're following that are very relevant to the sector that you're applying in, or perhaps you want to make sure you never miss a post from a certain recruiter, or you think, oh no, I've missed some of them. What if there's a job they posted last week that I haven't seen? You would just go onto their profile, go onto the activity section, and then have a look under show all activity. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn Learning you pay for normally, or you get it included. Every single premium version of LinkedIn, you get access to LinkedIn Learning. And LinkedIn Learning is just an enormous selection of online courses, many of which are really good quality. But LinkedIn very kindly decided to start making some courses available for free. So again, David is going to hopefully very kindly drop a link to this page in the chat for you. And this will, if you just save that link, it will, when you're ready for it, take you through to a page that shows you all of the different learning paths that they have and the sample courses they've made available for free. They have a brilliant selection of courses for job seekers. You can just about see it in the bottom corner there on the screen that I'm showing you. So you can access those without having to pay for LinkedIn. They decided to make a lot of their courses available for free when the pandemic struck as a way of being supportive. So I don't know how long these resources will be available for, but hopefully they'll be sticking around for a little while. And hooray, I've just about raced through all of the key stuff that I wanted to be able to tell you about. So I've left some time for questions, which I'm really relieved about. I was worried I'd tried to cram too much in, which means I just want to really quickly remind you about my online course, Power Up Your LinkedIn Profile. It isn't actually on my main website, but again, David is going to share a link for you. So I have a different platform, which is where I house all of my online courses. And this is what it looks like. So if you were to click through onto the platform, this is the screen that you see. And in the bottom right-hand corner, it's Power Up Your LinkedIn Profile. So if you're interested in learning far more detail about your profile and really how to make it amazing, then I'd love for you to go and have a look at that course. Sort of like LinkedIn does, I suppose. You can access the first module completely for free just to get a feel for what it's like and exactly what's involved. And so that brings us towards the end. As a quick reminder of everything we've raced through in our hour together today, what we have looked at is why bother with LinkedIn? Hopefully, I've convinced you all that it's really worth throwing yourselves into LinkedIn, how and why recruiters use LinkedIn, making sure you're creating a polished and professional LinkedIn profile so you've got your checklist to refer to after this session is over, how you can help recruiters find your profile, some of LinkedIn's best but little known resources, and then finally, we've had a super quick look at the Power Up Your LinkedIn Profile online course, which means that it's time for me to throw the floor open to you guys and field any questions that you have. I would love to see how I can help.
Thanks so much for that, Faye. Nanad said the presentation was awesome.
Oh, thank you. I'm so pleased. I was a bit worried I was talking at about 1,000 miles an hour to try and fit everything in.
Okay, we do have some questions from the chat, so I'm going to go through those, but if there's any more, then please type them in. And I just saw Dave just asked, where do I get a checklist? So that file was in the chat, so maybe you can send it again, Faye, the checklist?
Yes, of course, that's fine. I'll just drag it in now. Hang on. Oh, hang on, I just need to move my screen over a bit. There we go. So it's in the chat now and you can just save it straight onto your computer. But if anyone's thinking, oh no, I don't know how to work the chat, I haven't got any of these links, then feel free to get in touch with me. This can be a challenge for you. Just connect with me on LinkedIn and I'm happy to send it to you, or you can drop me an email and I can send you any of the resources if you're not able to access them in the chat today.
Okay, so the first question is from David. Should you add voluntary positions to LinkedIn? And if so, where?
Yes, that's a really good question. So I'll show you. Hang on, I will open up my screen so you can see exactly where to go. So, right, okay, so this is actually a good question because some people may not even know how to go into their profile to make all of these changes I keep talking about. So there are some different ways that you can access your profile to make changes to it. Once you're logged into LinkedIn, this is what your screen will look like. If you go along the top to where you can see a little circle of your face and it says me underneath it, if you click on there and then choose view profile, it takes you through to your profile. So this is where I've taken all the screenshots from today for the presentation. So to add any sort of profile section, you just scroll down a little bit and then you go here where it says add profile section. And I'd really encourage you to have a look through here so you can see all of the different sections that are available. A few things, it's not blindingly obvious where they are, like voluntary work. That, I believe, is actually in the additional section here. Yes. So it's here under add volunteer experience. And there are all these other ones as well, including languages. So I wish I spoke another language, but I don't. If you speak another language, then this is how you would add it to your profile, by popping it on there. So hopefully that explains it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I use that feature myself as well.
Oh, brilliant.
Next question is from Stephen. I have numerous variants of paper CVs tailored to different things I have experience in. How do you achieve that on LinkedIn?
That's such a good question. And that's brilliant to hear that you're tailoring your CVs. I know I mentioned if I was running a CV workshop, I would tell you all these different things, as well as saying to people, please have a personal profile section on your CV. The biggest piece of advice I could give is to make sure you are absolutely tailoring your CV to each role that you're applying for. Now, unfortunately, with LinkedIn, you can't completely tailor it to one specific role. So let's say you're applying for a role at Coca-Cola, then on your CV, you can say, you know, excited by this opportunity at Coca-Cola, or this is why I think I'm right for Coca-Cola. But you can't do that on LinkedIn. So you just have to do your best to try and target it as much as possible to the kind of job you would like. Where LinkedIn can be tricky is if you're thinking of applying for completely different jobs. So maybe you're applying for a marketing role and you're also applying for a teaching role. If that's the case, you can't really do both very well. So I'd normally recommend you just choose one for LinkedIn. And then don't direct people to LinkedIn if you are applying for other roles. It is a bit tricky that way, but hopefully you, who just asked me the question, I'm sorry, I've just forgotten what name David said.
Stephen.
Stephen, thank you. But hopefully, Stephen, the roles you're applying for are a little bit similar. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, great. The next question is from John. Just wondering if LinkedIn would work with people who've got potential rather than those who are already proven.
Yes, absolutely. Because definitely what I have seen with LinkedIn is that it builds and builds and builds. So even though if you're just starting out in your career and you haven't got a huge amount to put on there, you are filled with potential, but not necessarily with lots of experience yet. Yes, it's unlikely that a recruiter is going to find you on LinkedIn, but now is a brilliant time to start investing in putting the foundations of a great profile on there and really making the most of the platform. So it connects with people. So David got in touch with me to ask if I would do the webinar today. Well, I last spoke to David 16 years ago. So we would have connected to each other probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So the connections that you make now will still may prove useful or come back into your life in some way in the future. So don't feel like, oh, there's no point doing this because a recruiter's not going to get in touch with me. Well, actually, LinkedIn can help you in so many other ways. I would still really encourage you to make the most of the platform. You know, sign up to the free premium account, do the LinkedIn courses, network with people, find out about events, get on recruiters' radars. It doesn't matter if you can't put this all singing, all dancing, oh, I've got years and years of experience on there.
The next question is from David. He says, why is there a total lack of response from employers? Are there any reasons they might not respond?
Yes. So if you think back to when I was saying how overwhelming it can be as a recruiter when you, and I was speaking as an internal recruiter, so working within the HR department, I remember just having so many vacancies that we were trying to fill and getting hundreds of applications. If I put a job advert out, it just felt phenomenally difficult to get back to everyone. Best practice would say in HR that you always respond to every candidate, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. If you're not getting a response, it's and you're applying with a CV, it's very likely that you don't have the right keywords in your CV. So I touched on keywords very briefly today in the LinkedIn webinar. but they are probably even more important in your CV actually. So my advice to you would be to find out as much as you can about each role that you're applying for and tailor your CV completely to that role. And one way you can do that is to ask the organisation for a copy of the full job description. If it's a little tiny organisation, they may not have a full job description, but if it's a bigger organisation, then they should do. And they're not going to mind at all sharing that with you, by the way. They'll be delighted that you're showing initiative and genuinely interested in the role. And then from that, you'll be able to read through and look at what the key skills are that are required for that role. And then you can make sure you're mentioning those key skills in your CV. And I cannot tell you how drastically that is going to improve your chances of getting through the initial CV sift and actually hearing back from an organisation. So I feel like I keep saying, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. The next question is from Srishti. Where can we put up our conference presentations?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So there are
so there's got the events section and you can post YouTube videos and that sort of thing, can't you?
Yeah, so by conference presentation, do you mean that you have delivered a presentation and you would like to have it feature in your profile in some way? I'm trying to see if you can answer me in the chat.
Yeah, Srishti, if you can clarify, please.
That would be great, because I'll just, let's see. Here we go. Oh no, that's a different question. Sorry. So I'll just assume that's what you mean. So for anyone who may have, so for example, today I might want to put a link to this webinar in my profile. There are a couple of different places that you can do it. There is something called a featured section that you have in your profile, and it's brilliant. That is a fantastic place where you can link to any post that you've ever created on LinkedIn, but you can also link to external websites. So if it was on YouTube, like David was just saying, you could link to it there. And also in your experience section, where you put in the detail about the jobs you've done, you can actually attach presentations or videos or websites in there as well.
Okay, Duncan's just said there's an option for creatives that allows you to embed YouTube videos and articles on from other websites.
That option is for everybody, not just for creators.
Okay.
There is, I think you may be referring to, there is a creator profile. So if you're prolific on LinkedIn, so I have been, I've had lots of people suggest that I switch my profile to a creator profile, but I haven't. And so basically people with creator profiles are people who post very regularly on LinkedIn. They produce a lot of helpful content. And so, yeah, their profiles look a little bit different to everyone else's.
Okay, we've got a question from Valerie. Do you recommend showcasing Clifton strengths to appeal to recruiters that know both about them and those that don't? My top 5 are learner, responsibility, achiever, context, and strategic.
Fab. Okay. Oh, I love Clifton strengths. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. We could do a whole webinar on that if you want.
Great.
And who was it who asked that question, David?
Valerie.
Valerie, I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but Clifton Strengths have just brought out a Clifton Strengths podcast. I think it came out 2 weeks ago, so you might like that as well. I've just downloaded it. But anyway, to answer your question, no, I probably wouldn't put them that explicitly on there. You could, but it may leave some people wondering like, oh, what's that? As unfortunately, not everyone's heard of them. The real value, I think, that there is in having a Clifton Strengths assessment. So to anyone who's watching and listening thinking, what are Valerie and Faye talking about? There is a fantastic assessment that you can take online. I'm just seeing if I've got it on my desk, actually. I haven't. And it tells you what your top 5 strengths are, because the idea is that we all have got strengths, and our strengths are skills that we're very highly developed and that energize us and fulfill us when we use them. But they come to us so naturally that we often don't realize what they are. They're different to other skills we might be very good at, in that we may also be very good at certain other things, but that doesn't particularly fulfill us and we feel quite drained after we've used them. So it's great. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Mike, for sharing it. Oh, that's wonderful. So it's great to do the Clifton Strengths Assessment, because often we don't actually realise what the things we're brilliant at are. But the results are a bit weird. So you heard Valerie list off what her results are. So my results sound even stranger. So like one of my strengths is called woo, which just like I would never put that on my CV or LinkedIn profile. The real value in the Strengths Finder is actually you get a very detailed report that includes examples of people talking about their strengths. So they're people who have the same strengths as you, and they talk about how your strengths show up, so what that might look like for you. So what I encourage everyone to do really is do the Strengths Finder assessment, read through the reports, highlight the parts that feel very true for you, and then think of your own examples of when you can demonstrate that. So for example, one of my strengths is learner. I love learning new stuff. I'm not scared of technology, even though I haven't got a tech background. And so an example of me putting my learner strengths into action is actually creating the online course that I keep talking about, the LinkedIn profile one, because I taught myself how to record the videos, like upload everything. I tested out all of this different course software. I really enjoyed it. So if I was applying for a job where they needed to know that actually I'm not scared of tech and I like learning new things, then I can then talk about that very confidently in an interview. So I actually think the Strengths Finder results come into their own when you're in an interview situation, because if you've read through them all, you've highlighted the bits that feel true for you, you've thought of real concrete examples of how those strengths have shown up in your career, you can then answer a huge range of interview questions very confidently on them. You can also talk about them in your CV. Like Valerie, I think you said one of yours was strategic, which is great, in which case I would just mention that you're strategic and, you know, have strategy as one of your key skills, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a Clifton Strengths result. That was a really long answer, sorry.
Valerie says they can tell that you're a woo. Okay, the next question is from John. Any tips for your LinkedIn photograph?
Yes, get a teenager to take it for you. So they seem to be like my 15-year-old son, he's got strict instructions to stay in the other room and keep the dog quiet so she doesn't bark in the background. He's the best person at operating a mobile phone in our house. So, but no, in all seriousness, just get someone else to take the picture for you. It's always much harder to get a selfie that looks good. You just want it to be of your head and shoulders. You don't want to like have a cropped out photo of you at a party or a wedding or something just because you think you look nice in it. Have the photo taken specifically for LinkedIn. It's great to have a plain background, or if you've got one of the newer iPhones or any Android phone, you can blur out the background. There's that quite nice effect. So I've had one before where I was in the garden, like in front of a hedge, but I'd blurred out the green hedge. So the main thing is that it's one you take specifically for LinkedIn rather than hoping that one where you look nice from another occasion is going to work.
Okay, the next question is from David. How do you deal with employment gaps due to illness on LinkedIn?
Yes, that is a good question. So I saw someone tackle this really well in their CV, actually. If you've been, well, first of all, I'm really sorry to hear that you've had gaps due to being poorly, and I really hope that you're feeling better now. Then the second thing to say is, I suppose it depends a little bit on the situation. I remember the person whose CV, who I know we're talking about LinkedIn, but it's quite a similar thing, I reviewed, he put career break because he had had time off for treatment for cancer. And he put at the end of it, I have now made a full recovery and I'm looking forward to returning to the workplace. So that's one particular instance. You can just put career break on there if you want to. You can put career break due to illness if you want to. It's a bit of a personal decision, really. I don't think the gaps show up are as obvious on LinkedIn as they actually are on a CV. So you may even get away with leaving it off LinkedIn and people not necessarily noticing. I don't think people tend to scrutinize your LinkedIn profile in quite as much detail as they do with a CV. So I'd be more inclined to definitely explain the gap on a CV. I've just remembered I do actually have a blog that gives some guidance around time off of work for illness. So I can find that and send you the link to that as well. I won't look it up right now because I know there are more questions, but at the end, I promise that's the last thing I'll do before we stop the recording.
Okay, thanks. The next question is from John regarding endorsements. How do you get somebody to endorse your skills, and what is the criteria?
Yeah, that's another great question. And that's something that I look at in the LinkedIn course. Actually, lots of these things I look at in the course. So endorsements are a really good idea. I'll just share my screen again so everyone can see what we're talking about, because it might not be obvious. Give me 1 second to get it for you. Sorry, I just have to remember exactly where it was on here. Here we are. Okay, so the skills slide, next to where it says coaching, there's the number 47. That means that 47 people have endorsed me. 47 people have gone onto my profile and said, Faye is good at this. So it's a good idea to not only make the most of the fact you have got up to 50 skills you can display, but also to try and get some endorsements. So actually, if anyone's enjoyed this webinar, if afterwards you'd like to go onto my profile and endorse me for any of these things, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And to endorse somebody, you just go onto their profile and scroll down to their skills section, and you'll see there's a little plus button, I think it is, that you can click on to endorse them. Now, LinkedIn have clamped down on this a bit because it got a bit silly with endorsements going crazy and people just endorsing anyone for anything. So you have to fill in some additional questions as you're endorsing. So it will say, how do you know this person? And it will give you some options. So it's made it a little bit trickier, and it's good in some ways, but I think it's a bit of a shame because you don't see people getting as many endorsements as they used to. So if you have got a group of friends or colleagues and you're all moving on to new roles, or you've all facing redundancy at the same time, I'd really encourage you to all go on and endorse each other. And often what you may find happens is you go and endorse someone and they think, oh, that's so nice. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I'll go and endorse them back. So just by kind of, thinking about career karma I mentioned earlier, doing nice things for other people does sometimes come back to help you as well.
Do you want to put your LinkedIn profile in the chat so they can endorse you?
Oh yeah, thank you. I'm actually rubbish at ever asking for all this advice I'm giving you. I'm not actually very good at asking for these things myself. So thank you. That would be lovely. I'll pop that in the chat now.
Okay, so we've got time for a few more questions. Mary asks, how do you order the skills section to get the key ones at the top? Is it doing it based on the number of endorsements, the biggest one at the top? Or?
No. So the easiest way to do it is actually on your phone. So if you go to, I'll just open up LinkedIn on my phone. If you go to your profile on your phone, go to view profile, scroll down to the skills section, you will see that there are some little, hang on, I'm just trying to find it now. Just check they haven't changed it. Oh yeah, so you go to the skills section, then you tap on show all skills. Oh, do you know what they have? They've changed it. Maybe this isn't the best way to do it. Oh yes, okay. You go to show all skills, and then next to the very top where it says skills, there are 3 dots. LinkedIn haven't made this easy. Click on the 3 dots and then click on reorder, and that will let you reorder them, so you can put whichever ones at the top that you like. And I do cover that in the course as well in more detail. But I've got to stop saying hopefully that helps. I must have said hopefully 100 times. I've been trying to just go quiet at the end of answering a question, so I stopped saying it.
Okay, this question is from Peter. Any thoughts or advice for new graduates who don't have a past work history, like somebody who's been working for a long time? Is LinkedIn still helpful, and what kind of things are worth entering?
Yeah, it's still really helpful. I think it's a great idea because there's so much you can get from it without even, having had loads of experience. So like I was saying earlier, make sure you're connecting with everyone. You'll be amazed at how quickly your career can start to take off. I know it can feel like, oh, I'm starting from scratch, this is going to take forever, but actually it will probably happen more quickly. You'll look back and think, oh, I can't believe I was ever worrying about that or felt like that. So make the most of the free trial, do the LinkedIn Learning, connect with people. As far as making your own profile good, I always think it's a good idea to do some voluntary work. So, oh gosh, there's a whole load of resources I could give you on voluntary work. But if you haven't got a job right now and you haven't got loads of experience from before, voluntary work can be a fantastic way of actually showcasing some skills and building up some experience. So you can talk about it on there. That would probably be my main tip.
Okay, we've got time for just one more question now. This is from Eva. Licenses and certifications seem to be ordered by date. Is there a way to order them so that the most relevant certificates appear as the top 3?
Oh, yes, I saw that one. Do you know what? I'm not sure. That's one thing I don't actually know. I would probably have to go away and Google it. I think mine are all in date order. So I have fiddled around with other stuff, but I haven't actually changed that one. Have a really quick look now and see if there's some way of doing it. Have I ordered them? No, mine are in order as well. I'm so sorry, I'm not sure. I think maybe not. They may have to stay in that order, which is a shame, but it's probably worth just doing a quick Google to have a look and double check.
All right, well, thanks so much for that, Faye. That's all the time we've got for questions. So now I'm going to hand over to Darlin to wrap things up.
Wow, that is a fantastic session, Faye. Well done. It was really entertaining as well as informative.
Oh, thank you.
It really shows that you know a thing or two about about LinkedIn. I'm just wondering about going through your other 50 skills to find out about all the other things you know about. I'm going to have a look at that afterwards. Please join me, everyone, in checking out Faye's skills and endorsing some of them. I thought that was brilliant. Love to see you again. And in terms of what you like doing, I guess that you really like doing these things with people. Yeah, you're very much a people person.
I am very much a people person, yes.
And that is a fantastic thing, a fantastic skill to have, I always think. So when I'm looking for people to take on jobs and so on, I always look at how people impact, how would you say this, people friendly they are, good at teamwork, etc., as well as all the hard skills that we classify as being the prime reason for existence. I really think people, it's still people that make the world go round. Later, of course, it might not be. It might be robots or who knows what. And in the world of IT, we've got lots of examples of things like that. And this takes me to our other things that we've got coming up. So, for example, next week, if you can see this, we have got something on security, pen testing. So there's a job for you if that's something that interests you. Penetration testing to find out the weaknesses, the flaws in a company's security. That's going to be the topic next week, Wednesday. So do sign up and come to that as well if you can. And on the note of penetration testing and finding out the weaknesses and so on, there's something else that BCS is doing right now, which I'd welcome you to find out more about. And that is we are very much supporting Ukraine, the Ukraine IT Association in particular, and trying to link up with as many of those people who want to do things with us and with the UK, because the motto there is Ukraine is open for business. Yippee, thank goodness for that. And we want to encourage that. So if you'd like to encourage that too, find out more by going to the BCS website at www.bcs.org and finding out more. But don't miss the chance to link up with Faye, endorse her for lots of skills, and let's look forward to seeing you and Faye again soon. Thank you very much, Faye.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, all the best, everyone. See you next time.